We live in an age where doing more has become a badge of honor, where people wear their exhaustion like a status symbol, where the goal is to be constantly in motion, responding, reacting, producing, delivering. But what if all this effort, all this nonstop action, isn't actually leading us anywhere meaningful? Cal Newport begins slow productivity by challenging the very foundation of modern work culture. He doesn't start with hacks or quick wins. He starts with a problem, a deep, exhausting problem we've come to normalize. He asks a simple but powerful question: why, in a world full of productivity tools and time-saving apps, do we still feel completely overwhelmed? The answer, he says, lies not in our lack of discipline, but in our obsession with constant output. We've created a world that expects us to always be on, always available, always producing, and if we're not, we feel guilty, lazy, replaceable. But this mindset, while common, is quietly destroying our focus, our energy, and our ability to create anything meaningful. Cal explains that real productivity isn't about doing more things. It's about doing the right things, in the right way, at the right pace. But society rarely rewards slowness. We've been trained to measure our value by how full our calendars are, how quickly we respond to emails, how many tasks we complete in a day. The result: a life of motion without meaning. He shares his own experience, juggling teaching, research, and writing, constantly chasing deadlines. At some point, he realized he was checking all the boxes, hitting every target, but feeling completely detached from the work he once loved. He was accomplishing more, but experiencing less. That's when the shift began. Burnout, Cal says, often doesn't come from working too many hours. It comes from working in the wrong way, fragmented, reactive, shallow. When our days are filled with tiny, disconnected tasks, we lose the ability to go deep. We lose the ability to think, reflect, and actually build something that matters. And ironically, the more we chase efficiency, the less effective we become. Research backs this up. Knowledge workers, people who solve problems, generate ideas, write, design, or build, don't need 12-hour workdays. In fact, the best work often happens in short bursts of deep focus, surrounded by large spaces of quiet. But instead of honoring this rhythm, we fill every gap with noise. We mistake busyness for progress, and that constant activity wears us down. Cal talks about the pressure people feel to look busy even when there's nothing urgent to do. In offices, many people stay late not because they're productive, but because leaving early looks bad. Online, freelancers flood their calendars with back-to-back calls, fearing that slowing down will cost them clients. Even students cram their schedules with clubs, internships, and double majors, believing that more is always better. But this endless striving comes with a cost. It drains our creativity. It makes us impatient. It turns meaningful work into mechanical effort. And worst of all, it leaves no room for quality. When you're moving too fast, you don't see the mistakes. You don't have time to think differently. You just push through, hoping speed will somehow make up for depth. Cal calls this the treadmill effect. No matter how fast you run, the scenery never changes. You're in motion, but going nowhere. And deep down, most people know it. They feel the fatigue, the disconnection, the quiet voice asking, "Is this really what I want my life to be?" That's the real crisis. Not a lack of productivity, but a lack of purpose. And that's where slow productivity begins. It's not about being lazy. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing less, more intentionally. About rejecting the pressure to be constantly available. About reclaiming your time, your focus, and your attention so you can create work that actually matters to you and to others. Cal believes this is possible, but only if we're willing to shift the way we define success. Not by how many tasks we complete, but by how much value we create. Not by how fast we move, but by how deeply we engage. Not by how busy we look, but by how fulfilled we feel. To make this shift, he introduces 3 principles. First, do fewer things. Second, work at a natural pace. And third, obsess over quality. These aren't just slogans, they're tools to help you escape the chaos of modern work and build a life of thoughtful, impactful output. But before we dive into those, Cal invites you to pause. Just pause. Look at how you've been working. Look at how you've been living. Are you running towards something meaningful or just trying to keep up? Because slow productivity doesn't begin with action, it begins with awareness. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is slow down. The first principle of slow productivity is simple in theory, but radical in practice. Do fewer things. In a world that celebrates multitasking, busyness, and overcommitment, narrowing your focus feels almost rebellious. We've been told that the more we do, the more we achieve. But Cal Newport argues that doing too much is the very reason so many of us feel stuck, scattered, and unsatisfied. Most people operate under a mindset of accumulation. Say yes to everything. Add more goals, more projects, more responsibilities. It feels productive at first. You're filling your time, staying active. But the more you add, the thinner your attention stretches. Eventually, you reach a point where everything gets a piece of you, but nothing gets your full focus. Cal calls this the clutter problem. Just as a cluttered room overwhelms your senses, a cluttered to-do list overwhelms your mind. Every extra commitment steals bandwidth from the work that truly matters. You start living in reaction mode, answering emails, attending meetings, checking off low-impact tasks, while the deep, important work sits untouched. The solution isn't to manage your time better, it's to be ruthless about what deserves your time in the first place. He shares the story of Marie Curie, not just a brilliant scientist, but someone who fiercely protected her time. She turned down countless invitations and obligations to focus fully on her research. She knew that discovery required deep attention, and deep attention required space. This isn't just about history. Cal brings it to the present day. He talks about software developers, writers, designers, and entrepreneurs who have reshaped their careers by doing less. Not because they were lazy, but because they wanted their efforts to mean something. They didn't want to scatter their energy across 10 shallow projects. They wanted to go deep on one. That's the heart of this principle. Focus isn't just about efficiency, it's about impact. When you commit to fewer things, you create room for depth. You can think more clearly, plan more intentionally, and execute at a higher level. The work becomes more thoughtful. The results become more meaningful. But getting to that level requires courage. Saying no is hard. It triggers guilt, fear, the worry that you'll miss out, disappoint others, or fall behind. So most people stay stuck in overcommitment, telling themselves they'll slow down later once things calm down. But later never comes. There's always another email, another task, another reason to stay busy. Cal suggests a different approach. Don't wait for permission. Make the shift now, deliberately, strategically, one commitment at a time. He recommends keeping a clear list of current projects, personal and professional, and limiting that number. Not just what you're actively working on today, but anything you've mentally committed to. If it takes mental energy, it counts. Then, be honest. Which of these projects truly matter? Which ones move the needle, bring joy, or align with your long-term vision? And which ones are just noise? Cut the noise. Let go of the vanity projects, the half-hearted maybes, the just-in-case tasks. They don't serve you, they drain you. And when new opportunities come up, don't default to yes. Give yourself space to decide. Ask, does this align with what I've already chosen to focus on? Will it dilute the quality of my current work? If the answer is yes, say no, even if it's uncomfortable. Cal's rule is clear. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing with full attention. If you can't give it that, don't take it on. This mindset shift can transform the way you work and live. Instead of racing through a dozen mediocre tasks, you slow down and pour your energy into one meaningful pursuit. Instead of juggling endless goals, you choose a few that matter. And instead of feeling burned out and behind, you feel present, grounded, and in control. There's a paradox here. When you do fewer things, you often accomplish more. Not more in terms of volume, but in terms of value. Your work resonates, it lasts, it creates impact because it comes from a place of clarity, not chaos. But this isn't just about work, it applies to life too. Social obligations, hobbies, learning goals. If you try to do everything at once, you end up experiencing nothing deeply. But when you slow down and choose intentionally, you create space for real connection, real growth, and real enjoyment. Cal shares examples of people who've downsized their lives, not just their calendars. People who moved to quieter towns, simplified their routines, and let go of the pressure to chase every opportunity. And what they found wasn't boredom, it was freedom. Doing fewer things isn't about shrinking your ambition. It's about protecting it. It's about making sure your energy goes into something that truly deserves it. That's why this principle comes first. Because without it, the other two, working at a natural pace and obsessing over quality, aren't even possible. You can't slow down if you're buried in tasks, and you can't aim for excellence if you're always rushed. So if you take one thing from this part, let it be this. Focus is a choice, a powerful one that requires boundaries, intention, and a willingness to let go. Not everything is worth your time. Not every opportunity is worth chasing. Choose less, choose better, and make space for the once you've committed to doing fewer things. The next principle begins to make sense. Work at a natural pace. This idea sounds almost too simple, but in a world that rewards speed, urgency, and constant motion, working at a natural pace feels like rebellion. We've been taught that fast is better, that if you're not rushing, you're falling behind, that stillness is laziness, and rest is weakness. But Cal Newport argues that the most meaningful work we do, the kind that changes lives, solves problems, or creates something lasting, rarely comes from pushing ourselves to the limit. It comes from aligning how we work with how we're wired. The truth is, human beings aren't machines. We don't operate at full capacity all day long. We have rhythms, energy cycles, highs and lows. Some hours are naturally more focused. Some days are more creative. Some seasons are better for building, while others are better for reflecting. When we ignore these natural patterns and force ourselves to work nonstop, the quality of our output drops. Not just a little, dramatically. We start to lose clarity, we make mistakes, we burn out. But we keep going because we think we're being productive. We confuse effort with progress. Cal tells the story of how he started paying attention to his own rhythm. As a professor and writer, his work required focus. But he noticed that when he tried to cram writing into every available hour, the results were weak. When he gave himself shorter, more intentional writing blocks and protected them from distractions, his output actually improved. Not just in quantity, but in depth. He's not alone. Artists, scientists, thinkers, and entrepreneurs across history have worked this way. They weren't lazy, they just understood that forcing brilliance rarely produces it, that ideas need space, that the brain needs recovery, that real insight doesn't show up when you're rushing, it shows up when you're present. This is where slow productivity starts to feel different. It's not about working less just to relax more. It's about working smarter by honoring your biology and your bandwidth. Cal challenges the modern obsession with urgency, the need to reply instantly, the expectation of immediate results. He explains that urgency culture creates shallow work. It pressures us to react instead of think, to finish quickly instead of finish well. The solution isn't to ignore deadlines or stop trying. It's to build breathing room into your schedule, to create margins, to stop booking yourself wall to wall and pretending that constant strain is sustainable. He recommends something that sounds counterintuitive. Leave empty space in your day. Don't schedule every minute. Don't plan every hour. Give yourself room to breathe, to reflect, to adapt. Because the reality is, great work often comes in waves. One day might be wildly productive, the next, quieter. That's not a failure, it's rhythm. And when you allow for rhythm, you create a system that can last. Cal also emphasizes the importance of rest, not as a reward, but as a requirement. Rest isn't what you do after the work is done. It's what allows the work to happen in the first place. He points to research on sleep, breaks, nature walks, and even boredom. All of them contribute to better focus, clearer thinking, and more original ideas. Yet most people cut rest when things get busy, thinking it's optional. It's not. It's essential. Another key idea he shares is the difference between intensity and duration. Working hard isn't the enemy. In fact, short periods of intense focus can be incredibly powerful. The problem is trying to sustain that intensity all day, every day. That's what leads to collapse. Instead, he suggests embracing cycles, times of deep effort followed by real recovery. Focus, then release. Push, then pause. This isn't laziness. It's how high performers stay consistent over time. Cal reminds us that slowness isn't the opposite of ambition. It's the foundation of sustainable success. When you stop rushing, you start seeing. When you stop reacting, you start creating. When you stop pushing through exhaustion, you start finding your best work. He also talks about redefining productivity goals. Instead of asking, "How much can I do today?" ask, "What's the most meaningful thing I can move forward today?" It's a subtle shift, but a powerful one. It changes the way you structure your time. It changes what you prioritize, and it protects your energy for what actually matters. In a world where everyone is sprinting toward burnout, working at a natural pace is a form of wisdom. It's not about falling behind. It's about stepping back, seeing clearly, and moving forward with intention. And here's the most surprising part. When you need fewer revisions, you create more lasting impact with less wasted motion. The goal isn't to do nothing, the goal is to do the right things at the right time, in a way that honors how your mind and body actually function. That's not slacking. That's smart. So as you think about your own schedule, your own habits, ask yourself, are you forcing progress or allowing it? Are you sprinting on a path that leads nowhere or walking steadily towards something that matters? Slow productivity isn't about working less, it's about working better. And the better you understand your natural rhythm, the more powerful your work becomes. Kind of work and life that actually fulfills you. The third and final principle of slow productivity is about quality, not as a luxury, but as a mindset. Cal Newport calls us to obsess over quality, to stop measuring productivity by quantity or speed, and instead start asking, what am I actually producing? Is it any good? Will it last? In today's world, it's easy to confuse motion with progress. We respond to dozens of emails, attend countless meetings, post regularly on social media, check off long to-do lists, and still feel like nothing truly meaningful got done. That's because much of our energy goes toward maintaining the appearance of productivity rather than creating anything valuable. Cal argues that if we want to do work that matters, we have to let go of the obsession with fast results. Great work, truly great work, takes time, care, and deliberate effort. It's crafted, not cranked out. He shares examples from across different fields: writers who spend years refining a single manuscript, engineers who patiently iterate until a design becomes both elegant and reliable, craftsmen who work slowly, but whose creations last lifetimes. These people don't rush, they go deep. That depth, he says, is what separates forgettable output from enduring contribution. It's not about being perfect. It's about caring enough to make something that stands on its own, something you're proud of, something that reflects not just your skill, but your attention. But here's the challenge. In a world that rewards speed, obsessing over quality can feel inefficient. People may question your pace. They may urge you to just finish and move on. They may not see the value in all the refining, revising, and reworking. That's why this principle requires conviction. You have to believe that better is more important than faster, that value outlasts volume, and that the time you spend improving your craft is never wasted. Cal talks about the temptation to rush, especially when deadlines loom or when others are watching. He warns that cutting corners becomes a habit, It erodes your standards. You start accepting good enough even when you know you're capable of better. And over time, that erodes your confidence too. He encourages you to build a different habit: care. Take pride in the small details. Don't just finish tasks, elevate them. Look for ways to make your work clearer, stronger, more effective. Not to impress others, but to respect yourself and the craft you've chosen. This mindset applies whether you're an artist or an accountant, a teacher or a tech founder. Every job has opportunities to care more deeply, to think more clearly, to contribute something more thoughtful. It's not about being slow for the sake of it. It's about using slowness as a tool to go deeper. When you obsess over quality, something else happens too. You start enjoying your work more. You feel connected to it. You stop seeing it as a chore and start seeing it as an expression of who you are. That connection builds motivation. It builds meaning. Cal also points out that quality reduces waste. When you do things well the first time, you don't spend hours fixing mistakes later. You don't need damage control. You don't constantly revise because you didn't rush in the first place. Ironically, slowing down to do it right can save time in the long run. Of course, there will always be pressures, urgencies, people asking for faster results. But he suggests drawing a line. Protect your standards. Make space for excellence. Because no one else will do it for you. This principle ties everything together. You can't obsess over quality if you're juggling too many things. You can't do deep, careful work if you're moving at a frantic pace. That's why do fewer things and work at a natural pace come first. Quality needs space, it needs time, it needs presence. So how do you apply this in real life? Start by choosing one area of your work to slow down and do better. Just one. It could be how you write emails, how you design presentations, how you coach a team member, or how you structure your daily work. Choose one thing and treat it like a craft. Give it care, give it attention. Watch how the results change, not just for others, but for how you feel about it. Then expand. Let that mindset ripple outward. Make quality your default, not your exception. Cal reminds us that productivity shouldn't be about volume. It should be about meaning. The goal isn't to get more done. The goal is to do work that matters, to you and to the world. Slow productivity isn't lazy, it's strategic, it's grounded, and it's deeply human. When you do fewer things, you give yourself the gift of focus. When you work at a natural pace, you give yourself the gift of sustainability. And when you obsess over quality, you give yourself the gift of pride, satisfaction, and purpose. This is the heart of the book. It's not a system. It's a philosophy. A way of being in the world that honors your mind, your body, and your potential. You don't need to chase more. You don't need to burn out to prove your worth. You don't need to trade your health for hustle. You just need to slow down and do what matters.